Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at the 10 hardest Switch games. While the Switch does have some cozy titles to get lost in, there are still plenty of games that will challenge you in some capacity. These ones might make you sweat. What's the hardest game you've played on the Switch? Let us know down in the comments. Before we begin, we publish new videos all week long, so be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Metroid Dread. Was this the first game to pop into your mind when you saw this video? Well, same here. Metroid Dread was a much needed reminder that Samus has as much of a right to be at Nintendo's forefront as Link and Mario. The tricky part about Dread is that fighting isn't going to save your behind in every encounter. The Emmy droids that lurked around the map were absolutely terrifying, and getting caught by one would end you. You had to memorize the map to know where your safe zones were and how to quickly escape an Emmy. And as a casual player, I have to say this is the most stressed I've ever been when playing a Metroid game. Those Emmys are terrifying. And that goes without mentioning some of the insane boss fights you'll endure too. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. To say a Kirby game is hard is like saying grass isn't the right shade of turquoise. It just doesn't make any sense, you know? So what makes Forgotten Land so hard? Well, it's rescuing all of those Waddle Dees. While many of them are locked behind puzzle rooms, minigames, and collectibles, some are locked behind more arduous challenges, such as beating a boss with a specific copy ability, or beating the boss without getting hit once. Upon rescuing all of the Waddle Dees, you will gain access to the true final boss, and it is by no means a cakewalk. Of course, if you want a more traditional 2D Kirby game that presents the same level of challenge, Return to Dreamland Deluxe has a pretty challenging New Game Plus mode and epilogue campaign. Fire Emblem Three Houses. It is worth mentioning that you can play Three Houses under two different difficulties. Sure, you can play it like a normal tactical RPG and abuse the rewind mechanic to undo bad moves, but if you want to raise the stakes and really have to put thought into your actions, this game gets a bit grueling when permadeath is activated. Now that units can actually die and never return, suddenly every little thing you do matters both on and off the battlefield. You will need to carefully plan out the day's lessons and properly gauge how often you go out taking on side missions while progressing through the main campaign. What say you, Professor? Will you defy death or become worst teacher of the year?
Now's our chance.
Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. It's no surprise to see Donkey Kong Country on this list. With the notorious reputations of the games before Tropical Freeze, why wouldn't the last entry be tough? Tropical Freeze, though a port of the Wii U game, is still worth grabbing for your Switch. The platforming is just as tricky as previous installments, and yes, you might go apeshit trying to get every puzzle piece and Kong letter. Hey, if it ever becomes too much for you, there is the new Funky mode, so you can ignore all those enemies and pitfalls in style as the funkiest Kong in the jungle. Cyber Shadow. Cyber Shadow has a funny way of showing its difficulty. Of course, every level is just as harrowing as the old days of Ninja Gaiden, an NES classic that the game is clearly inspired by. However, it's the boss battles where the game can be as tough as you want it to be. Some bosses do have an obvious method of cheesing them, and it can make the game a hell of a lot easier. Though, we'd argue that beating them legitimately lets the game shine a little bit more, but you do you. Just know that if you do decide to cheese them, you might get ridiculed for it. Darkest Dungeon.
Press this advantage. Give them no quarter.
In all honesty, Darkest Dungeon is hard regardless of what platform you're playing on. Not only do you need to gauge your party's health pool and resources, you also need to take care of their stress meter. Should a member absorb too much stress, their moment of awakening occurs, and they will be inflicted with either a virtuous behavior or an affliction. Most of the time, it's affliction, and it's annoying. Both can affect your party in positive and negative ways, as stressed members may act on their own accord and ignore your commands. No one will judge you for playing on easy, just saying.
Great is the weapon that cuts on its own.
Dark Souls Remastered.
To await the end of the world. This is your fate.
Of course, Dark Souls was going to bully its way onto this list. Why wouldn't it? It's Dark Souls. We all know what to expect from it at this point because we've heard the same jokes, the same memes, and the same backseat gaming comments about what to do and why you're not doing this. Dodge roll the bosses, beat Ornstein and Smo or you're an unreal gamer. Blighttown is horribly optimized to where the game chugs. Get good, the whole 9 yards. We've heard it all before. That last bit still rings true though. You can have 20 back pedals on a Pro Controller, it isn't going to necessarily make this game easier. And at the end of the day, you really are going to have to get good. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild is difficult in its own ways with how much freedom you have in messing with the game's physics through rune abilities. It's almost the same reason why we're putting Tears of the Kingdom on here instead. But the main difference between the two is that Tears very much requires a lot more outside-the-box thinking when it comes to combat and puzzles. On top of that, you have the survival mechanics featured in Breath thrown into the mix. You really have to get creative in how you approach every encounter, and this sandbox approach can either make or break some players. Hades. Zagreus took the world by storm when Hades finally emerged out of early access, and damn, we were not expecting something this fun and stressful. The success rate of your run will always depend on two factors: your own skills with the core functions of dashing and your weapons mechanics, and the types of boons you choose from the gods that appear throughout your run. Things get even more complicated when the game starts throwing gifts from other characters with their own modifiers, and there's also Chaos, whose boons will make life difficult temporarily before turning into something truly beneficial. You're going to have to make some tough decisions and anticipate how rough the road might get later in your run. Shin Megami Tensei V. If you ever forget how grueling JRPGs can be, even in the modern era of gaming, Shin Megami Tensei V is a heartless reminder. Look, we enjoyed the game ourselves, but holy hell, it asks a lot from you. Granted, the hardcore fans of JRPGs are used to this stuff because they expect it from most JRPGs. You know, the need to grind for XP, bosses that deal an obscene amount of damage, limited resources, the whole shebang. Just for reference, a normal slime on hard difficulty can wreck your whole party. That's how ridiculous this game is. Great game, but play at your own risk if you don't want to resort to safety mode. Did you enjoy this video? Check out some of our other videos here on MojoPlays, and don't forget to subscribe for more great stuff every day.